Very good morning. Good morning. This is G7 Voices Without Boundaries. Another beautiful day to shine, to smile, and to be thankful. Uh, it's been a very interesting week for some of us, and for many blessings and many guidance. Staying thankful for everything that is everything. Today we're gonna have a very beautiful conversation that's gonna enlighten about cultures, about preservation, about tradition, about the beauty of life, and unfortunately, we're having challenges with our Facebook connection. So what I'm going to do is I'll send out a link later, and I'll attach this recording on Facebook for everyone who's going to be watching from Facebook Live. Today we have a beautiful individual, a beautiful soul, and it's not been long since I've known her, but I must say that the energy that she exudes is so beautiful and so wonderful. And who is this young queen that I'm talking about? And she's a local of Baltimore, Maryland, and she's a business owner and a graphic designer that has created events and programs that serve to empower and unite survivors of rape, incest, domestic violence, and foster care youth through the healing arts she can heal and discover, so they can heal and discover their own empowered voice. She is of Pueblo, Cherokee, Aztec, and Spanish descent, and serves on the board of directors for the Baltimore American Indian Center. She is passionate about indigenous peoples and healing through the arts. She has spoken at several key events and has been active in the community for the rights of survivors, women, and indigenous peoples. She is an active peer-to-peer mentor for groups with NAMI, which is NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness. She will be a keynote speaker in South Africa this November 2021 at the Artisan Conference, Artists for Social Transformation. She believes each person has the potential to create a life that is filled with happiness and love. She serves her community through organizing events, graphic design, and marketing services, and volunteer work. She is currently the marketing and registrar coordinator at Pearlstone in Reisterstown, Maryland. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Miss Jennifer Folayan.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the welcome, Natty. I'm happy to be here today.
You are more than welcome, Miss Jennifer. And it's my pleasure to actually have you on our podcast and to be talking to you in this space and time. Um, there's quite a lot of things that we're going to talk about, and having listened to your conversations, whether be it on YouTube or corresponding with you, whether it's text messages, uh, and listening to some of the work that you do on YouTube, there is a lot of inspiration that goes around who you are, and of course that transcends to your origins and your traditional upbringing, and how you transfer all of that energy to the people around you, the work that you do, the experiences that you have gone through as well as a woman, and how you project possible possibilities in people having to heal through the arts. And I want to thank my good friend Shana for connecting me with you. And here we are today. And once again, welcome to G7 Voices Without Boundaries. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, how do you start, a conversation with someone who has so much uh, wealth of knowledge, and also the network that we have is so very diverse. Uh,
hmm
First of all, let me start with this, Miss Jennifer. How do you end up here doing what you're doing?
Good question. I flew in from the universe and landed right here. Yeah. Um, I think a lot of us in life, we go through many different journeys, and it's been a process. And as we learn more about ourselves and get more connected, I think we're in a period of time where our generation is asked to reconnect to ourselves, to the earth, and see what are the possibilities for the next 7 generations.
Right.
You just mentioned that you were on a camping trip with some youth. How was that? Like, why are you taking youth out into the woods?
Exactly, exactly. That's a very good question. Uh, I think I like how this podcast is going to go, because I will end up being the one being interviewed. So that's good. So it was life changing. It was life changing, Ms. Jennifer, having to think that the youth that I work with, they are at risk youth.
Mm,
So how do you expose them? How do you introduce them to an environment that is going to trigger awareness, that is going to trigger a different sense of perception and a reception, choices,
mm,
the language, understanding the people that are around them. Now you're taking them camping, and camping is very secluded, but it's not only secluded, it's not secluded because you don't have anything to attach to, but there is a wealth of natural, energies that are around, the
mhm,
trees, the birds, all the little bugs that you see around. That's all nature. And then having to go to sleep at night, you see the stars with no pollution from all the lights, and then you realize, wow, there's so many stars in the sky, and the conversations that come around the campfire, sitting in a circle, they they make one understand exactly what am I working with here, because when the youth are in the city, they're constantly moving. So
mhm,
having to take that time to stop and pause, and there's no Wi-Fi, so
mm,
everything is standstill. They can't use their phone, so they are stuck with the conversation. So to answer your question, it's a life-changing situation. For me, I've taken more than 5 trips with the youth. I organized as many intense camp outs with them
mm.
to keep challenging them, to take them out of their comfort zone. um, Hence the reason why I was asking the question, how do you end up here? Because I do think that from reading your bio and listening to what you're doing, uh, you have chosen to come out from that uncomfortable place. You know,
Mhm.
you have chose to use the uncomfortability, to be comfortable, but at the same time still triggering other questions and ideas that are going to make you uncomfortable. So how
Mhm.
does that work? What does that look like?
Yeah, I think that's very important. So just even within this year, I've been challenging myself on especially what you're talking about, getting connected.
Hmm.
And I grew up in Hampton, Virginia. My family's from New Mexico and California. We're Pueblo, Cherokee, Aztec. But here in Baltimore, I've been in Baltimore for about the past 20 years.
Right.
So we do have a lot of native people here, but we consider ourselves urban Indians. And when you live in the city for so long, you get used to having a layer of protection around you.
Right.
And during COVID, I happened to have moved to Reisterstown, Maryland, and I work at a retreat center, which has lots of woods and nature. So at first, it was like, even though it was nice, I was a little bit paranoid. I'm like, what's that? What's that?
Right.
And oftentimes,
Right.
like, to go in the woods is scary because black and brown people in all the horror movies are the first to go. Like, you watch all these different shows and you're like, oh, that was dumb. Like, don't they know? Okay, cell phones out. Like, you don't go with white people into the woods. You're going to get, something's bad is going to happen to you. So I could only imagine, like, where you're taking kids at first into the woods, there's a certain amount of fear, actually. So even though it's this beautiful, like, oh, we're going to connect to nature and be all whatever, like at first it can produce fear. And so, for example, I did quite a few things of connecting back to nature because I found that that also is healing. So one time I did a camping trip and we had an exercise where we had to do a blindfold walk through the woods. And so we put the blindfold on, and there's like a rope that you can kind of feel to go around the woods. And again, like I wasn't sure how I would react, but at first it brought up a lot of fear. Like, I don't have control over this situation. I'm blindfolded. It's in the dark. It's in the woods with a bunch of non-Black and brown people. And so I had at first a complete anxiety attack, a complete meltdown. And it brought up issues of safety. And that is part of my story of reconnecting. One other quick story is that earlier in the year, I also went to another type of retreat with a Lakota elder, and I did a wiping of tears ceremony. And usually the wiping of tears ceremony is for someone who's lost a loved one, and you go through mourning for a year, and then after a year, the tribe calls you back. So you call back and you have a space to call back your spirit. Because oftentimes when we go through trauma, our spirit can leave us. So I decided to participate in the wiping of tears ceremony because as I'm doing my work, I noticed that I was very headstrong. Like, I have ideas, I'm a workhorse, like I'll plan events. But oftentimes if someone asks me, how are you? I don't have any clue because I'm not in my body, like I'm off there working. So this question of like, what does it mean to be in my body? At what point did I disconnect from it? And why have I functioned so long in disconnection? How can I unify that? So one part of the wiping of tears ceremony is that you call your name out loud 4 times. And it sort of reminded me of growing up when your mom calls you, hey, come on home. So I'm like, Jennifer, 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 Jennifer. And each time I yelled out Jennifer into the woods, I felt like the 4-year-old came back, the 14-year-old came back, the 8-year-old. And it was through different moments of growing up and traumatic events that happened that I either escaped my body and became disconnected. And these little Jennifers have been trying to run life at times. They try to survive.
Right.
And now it's a time where the adult Jennifer is like, it's okay to be a kid. You can come back now. I have this. I will make sure that we're all protected.
Wow. So this is sorry, having an echo. Technology. Yes. Sorry about that. So when you're talking about how the wiping of tears, so is this something that is very much done culturally, from the your tradition as far as the native Indian community is concerned?
Yes. So within the Native American community, we have different tribes, similar to other cultures. And within each tribe are different traditions. So the wiping of tears ceremony is a Lakota tradition, which is generally, say, in the South Dakota area of the United States. But because there's a lot of sharing of our native ways, whether we're Lakota, Cherokee, across what we call Turtle Island, we can participate in ceremonies and still find healing, be welcomed with it.
Right. And how is that still passed on from like generationally? I'm sure, like you say, like growing up, and now you have young men and women, who are millennials, Generation Z. Are they aware of that tradition, or is it more so a certain group of young men and women who are within that community are more aware of that?
It depends on where people are living, what access that we have to things. And you may find even with the youth that you work with, that there's a lot of broken families. Absolutely. And so like in my case, I lived in foster care from age 14 to 18. And so sometimes, even though I know, like at that time growing up, yes, I'm Native, yes, I have traditions, I went through different circumstances where the family was broken apart.
Mm,
And so not having access to culture. So those, years in foster care living with a white military foster family, I wasn't exposed or participating in Native cultures. And sometimes it's hard too, like say our mom or dad isn't in the picture, we don't have mentors, we don't know our community.
right.
So there's a certain like emptiness, a certain like heartache that we're mourning for something, we're not quite sure what it is. And we feel when we go out into the world and look around, like, why do I feel so alone? And
Exactly.
I think we've been discussing that to bring that back is through the arts, is through nature experiences, to get some sort of connection that, yes, we're here for some reason. There
Uh-huh.
is a design, there is a creator, there is love, there's hope and possibility, even though I may have not experienced it in my surroundings.
Right. And now you actually segued to what I was about to ask you. How does then art come into the picture? Because the art itself, is it there is art that is we create in the theater. There is art in our communities that we have traditionally, and how does the art play a big picture in the healing aspect of the communities? And I'm talking about the art that we find within the traditional communities. And now I'm reminded of the interview that we had, or I think was on Thursday on YouTube when you're doing your fundraiser, and you
Mhm.
showed a clip of Zulu men dancing in South Africa, in Lamu, that is art. And of course, like over time, it's been commercialized where
Mhm.
we have tourists coming to watch like all these black men with shields wearing, the amabeshu, which we call it in Zulu. Um, Now it's more so about like, to give money. But when you go further into the rural areas of Durban, you find the anchor of where this is coming from and what it represents and what it means. And there's different types of those dances. That's a war dance. The Shaka Zulu was using those dances when he was attacking whichever tribe. It showed a lot of like confidence, community, the unity. But at the same time, it was healing for them to know that we're going in to take over, because he wanted that land, and he wanted to make sure that he was known who he was. But the art form in that is how he was creating these dances, and how he was creating these different formations to attack men. It's art on its own. And here
Mm.
we are today, I'm talking to you, and you talk about healing, from women who have been abused, incest, rape. How do we introduce them, or how did you introduce the art into the 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 the, the healing of the mind and the soul and the space that they are in? How does that work?
Sure. And um, so my story involves a lot of trauma, and just to let people know, if you're listening, to take care of yourselves. If I talk about something that triggers you, just make sure that you're okay. Um, so my story, ever since I can remember from the age of 4, I had been molested and abused by my father.
Mm,
And not only my father, but about 9 other people from the age of 4 to 14 growing up uh, molested me, sexually assaulted me. And so there was a major disconnection from a very early age of being in my body, and
right.
also an expectation that I have to please other people. And it was so much that my voice really wasn't prominent. It was accommodating everybody else so quickly. And
Mm,
I found then I was in foster care from age 14 to 18, graduated. At the time when my father was arrested at 14, my mother was living homeless and the family was broken apart. So in the early years, I did go to therapy. I was exposed to some art therapy and group sessions.
Mm.
And then I've always been an artist. I studied art and psychology in college, thinking I would be an art therapist. And then navigating adulthood has been faced with different challenges, because you can be smart, but those skills of knowing, like, am I confident in myself of making decisions? Not having mentors to ask, like, even how do I buy a car, or manage my student loads, just certain things where it was like I didn't have those kinds of people in my life. And then going through a job and marriage and just different things. So in each different stage, so I was always a fine artist, like doing art, painting, that kind of thing. I found that that form of art is a certain language where I would clam up trying to express myself verbally. I felt more comfortable expressing myself through the arts.
Mm.
I did at some points in my life a lot of singing, like, and studying classical singing as well, like how to use the voice, project the voice. Also in theater, you have to project your voice and come into a character and really feel like, use different parts of your voice, whether it's in your chest or in your head or projection. And just that sense of like having to open my mouth and project my voice was fearful. And then I studied a lot of dance, especially Polynesian dance. I did study African dance in college.
Okay.
And then I became heavily involved in Polynesian, like hula, Tahitian, Samoan, different forms of dancing. And what I found through indigenous dancing is like a connection to earth, certain cycles of things. Again, a certain language of how you express something. And like you said, in many African dances, like there's different dances for different things. It could be a war, it could be connecting to earth, it could be sending a message. And so the ability to send messages and have a connection with yourself, with the earth, with your ancestors on different layers in a different kind of way of expressing yourself is very powerful. And then, other forms I've done throughout the years, and I found that each stage brought in a different layer. So I guess to answer your question, the arts for me is a language. It's a way to connect to yourself, to different spiritual concepts, to the earth, and do that in a beautiful way that accesses healing, like just technically using your voice, feeling your body. For a lot of us survivors, during trauma, we often escape our body. And that's why I said this idea of that I need to reconnect with myself. Because if you ask me how I was doing, I didn't feel myself. I couldn't feel inside my body.
Mm.
And now I've, through dance and different things, have an ability to check in, like, oh, my heart's beating fast. Maybe I'm about to get anxious. My stomach hurts. I feel my feet on the ground. And that was just like a big revelation for me. Like, wow, okay, I actually feel things. Cool.
So saying that, Miss Jennifer, have you? Let me ask from a point of asking about other people. I'll ask you the same question as well. Has this been very beneficial for people, or do they find? Of course, it's beneficial. I guess for lack of a better way of asking my question, let me rephrase my question. How is the process for individuals who are victims? Has this healing process been an easy journey for them, or do they find the connection for them to heal? How long is the process, and when do they identify themselves again? Like, wow, like you said, my heartbeat, my senses, I'm aware. Like, I look at myself on the mirror, I recognize this person that is me. Yes, I've been hurt, but I'm going through this healing process. So the question is, how is that journey for individuals whom you work with that have been affected by such atrocities?
Again, I'm very careful not to speak for others because we all have unique experiences. And I've also done a lot of mentoring um, with mental illness. So I myself have dealt with depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder.
Mhm.
So in support groups and different things, we often share our experiences and talk about it. And I just would say that in recovery or in healing, whatever journey that you're on, to not compare your journey or healing with someone else,
Mm.
that we each make whatever discovery that we're going to make. And I've heard, testimonials with people that have done arts for healing, and there have been transformations, and whatever they discover about themselves in that moment leads to the next moment.
Mm.
And sometimes we have an expectation of, when am I going to be healed? When is this going to be
Aye.
over with? Like, I'm so tired of dealing with this crap. And I would just say to love yourself of where you're at in that space and time. I have also broken down and cried in the night and sat outside and say, why, God, like, why did all this stuff happen to me? And even though I'm smart and working hard every day and trying to do all these big things, at times I have even felt like, what's the point?
Aye.
And it comes in layers. So we heal, go through the next layer, we heal, and different things will sprout up of, okay, what do I need to work on now? What I can say is that I'm in a space right now have gone through different layers
Mhm.
of healing, that I feel now that the past is something that is over there,
Right.
where it used to be like right here. Like, I'm a survivor. I went through all this stuff. And so, yes, I still am a survivor, but it's now a little bit more further in the past. It's not as in my face all the time. And I feel that that space that I've created in myself to be connected, to accept myself, has really helped, um, despite any ups and downs and falling down, getting back up, that,
Right. Right.
I feel okay with things.
Absolutely. Like you say, every situation is different. Every trauma is different, and there's different triggers to every trauma. Some people it's either the smell, the presence, sound. Uh, all of that. Those are triggers, and but there is power. There is power in art that people then can easily gravitate to any type of form of art, to find that therapy. Not only is it therapy, but it also connects them to something that can create a backbone for them when they fall off again. They
Yes.
also find a community within that art form, because that art form comes with people, it comes with different energies, and
Mhm.
and now you have another support system from a conventional to now you have like the holistic support system as well. Um, so I'm reminded of like some of the things that I went through myself, and as an artist, I remember I created this one dance piece, which was scary for myself even creating it, because it kept digging and digging and digging every time I go in this studio. And I was working with two of my best mentors. I was in England at that time, and every time we come in the studio, we find something, and like one memory will trigger something else, and then we keep, like, it was an never-ending peeling of layers. But at some point, you have to close the chapter. How do you close it without leaving something outside? And
Mm.
I remember when I performed that piece, when I came to the States, I was performing it in North Carolina.
Mm.
There's a couple, the couple, the husband, actually the wife, she came after the show. She was like, what just happened on stage? Because I was actually like, you could feel the energy that was coming off from the stage. I felt it myself, because like I said again, this was probably one of the pieces that, like, ever even if I think of going to perform that piece again, I have to do some groundwork. because
Mm.
there's a lot of work that comes with it. But because of the music that I chose, the space that I chose, the mindset that I put myself in, you know, it created that healing, you know. And yes, it's a process. Um, let's talk about your journey now, going to South Africa, you know.
Mm.
Like I was saying to you, I sent the flyer to a number of my friends in South Africa. They are excited to actually come and participate. I've got like quite a few friends of mine who are yogis, you know, and poets and artists, and they are really indulging in the arts in South Africa, and especially in these times where there is a lot of healing that is not happening within one space, but for everyone globally. And now to be in a place where, okay, we can travel, you know, okay, let's connect with these people, and okay, while we're here, let's capitalize on doing one, two, three, and four things to at least accommodate everyone. So how what's on your mind thinking about going to South Africa? You know, like in your mind, a positive thought. What are those positive thoughts that you have in your mind to go to South Africa and share the space and stage uh, 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 with the Natties of South Africa and other people from the diaspora?
Mhm. So first, I'm very excited because my team and we met yesterday and we were doing some team building activities as we're preparing to
Mm,
be ambassadors from Turtle Island to go to South Africa. And I think some things that we're kind of curious about, maybe you have some thoughts, is I guess like as we go to a different place and especially South Africa, to understand like how are people thinking there, what can we contribute,
mm,
um like what kind of stories, because one of my team members was asking, well, what are the stories that they have, like how can we help, and it's like, well, we haven't gone there yet, we haven't asked that question. Or other people were concerned about how do we make an impact, can we really have sustainability within our own art forms. So I guess just since that is your hometown, I'm just kind of curious of maybe what you think about Native Americans, one, had you ever been exposed, and then two, like I don't know, just what is it like what's going on in the arts world, what is the viewpoint like here in America. We have different layers of racism and colonization. And so I don't know what that experience is like of growing up in a country that had apartheid and other issues. So
right.
maybe if you can kind of share some of your experience.
So, I mean, having been away from South Africa for a long time, you know, it's now going 24 years plus
Mm-hmm.
years, but I've made it a point that I go to South Africa every year. Sometimes I'll go twice, and I've had a lot of collaborations with artists that I've worked with, and I've created works in South Africa. And uh, so to answer your question, so with me being in the West, a lot of things happen, you know, and I have to stay in tune and listen to what's going on there. But having said that, again, the media sometimes can be very deceiving because what you read and what you see is totally different. So I can read about something today, and then like 2 months from now, I go to South Africa and then find that it wasn't the case, or it's not as like serious as they thought it was, you know, whatever the case might be. Uh, but the one thing that has been very much on the news and talking to my friends now, whether be it on Facebook or Instagram or like on the phone, the whole femicide thing, you know, a lot of women since COVID started, a lot of women have lost their lives. A lot of young girls have lost their lives, you know, and it comes again with that whole mindset of men thinking that they have control over women, the patriarchy, you know, that whole mentality. But it's become so evident this time through, you know. You hear of stories, women found hanging on the tree pregnant, women are sliced out, like, you know, slashed out their throats, you know, and women disappearing and that they are found in the trash bags, like out in the distant, like in the farms, whatever the case may be. And also the abuse, women being physically abused by their boyfriends or husbands. um, and they can't run away from that because the man has already like infiltrated their mind. They are scared. The police system, the law enforcement, not being as supportive as it's supposed to be because they consider, oh, that's a domestic issue, so we can't really do anything. Do you want to press charges? Then the woman might be afraid again. So I can't press charges. Okay, he gets arrested. What happens? The whole nine yard of how when a perpetrator has finally found a way to control you, they know that you're not going to do anything. So and then of course you've got the political arena, where the the country is moving and shifting in so many different directions because of the never knowing whether the country is going or is coming, and from 94 when Nelson Mandela came out from prison, everybody was cheering and like, geared up for change. Yes, there was change. Yes, there is change, but it's now come to a point where money becomes the factor, greed, you know, money is not being put out the way it's supposed to be. Money is not being dispersed to communities that need that money. Um, Job creation, you only create jobs just for the paper. Or we put this much money here, okay, we have this happening, and then the rest of the money is being squandered. People travel wherever they want to go because they using that money, and yet people in the natives are not getting anything out of that. The education system, same applies. Poverty, there's still poverty in so many areas of South Africa. It's only when you go to the urban areas. Again, in the urban, you find your average, man who's working in the bank or working in the corporate. Of course, they are making big money. They live in the suburbs, and then the white community still lives in those gated communities where you walk through the suburb, you don't even see what's on the other side because everything is walled up. Razor wires, electric fences. Yes, there is crime just like anywhere else, uh, but now it's more about we are in our own place. We're not going to mix with these people. And then the health system has been like another case. But interestingly enough, with the COVID, or as much as it affected everyone globally, it didn't like it affected South Africa, but there was a level of control. There was a level of control, but it comes again with the people themselves. How do we control what's happening in our country to take care of ourselves? Think of New Zealand. New Zealand is thinking as a community, not as one individual. Yes, you have got the government, and then the government, like, puts these like mandatory laws, and then it filters to the people that we want to take care of ourselves. So, and then you have this whole patriarchy thing again. It's always been that one issue of many that separates men and women in terms of how they think. And we have a lot of women who are educated in South Africa, who have come through the the, the ladder and like excelled because they haven't been given that opportunity. But once they got that opportunity, they capitalized on it and they kept running. Um, we've got a lot of young women and young men who are studying overseas. They go back to South Africa and do what is great in their community. But now, if the resources are not there, and then those individuals, what do? They go back up, So now the country is left again with nothing. And but the arts has been the one anchor to everything that is anything. So in South Africa, we have got music, whether we're protesting or whether we are celebrating a birth or when there is a funeral, uh, whether it's just like simple, just like celebrate because we're celebrating as people. You know, the arts has always been there. And if you go to the core of the arts itself, you find a lot of disciplines that are speaking on what's happening in the country, what's happening within the communities, how do we express ourselves. And that's what's making people feel included within the communities, because you find a community within a community. Uh, and not only that, when it comes to collaborations, the work that you do yourself, I'm very much sure that when you get there, by the time you come back to America, you will have an abundance of individuals that are like, Miss Jennifer, I want to do work with you, whether be it visual art or be it music or poetry or whatever, with whatever discipline, you will find a lot of people. Wow, I want to continue my work with you, even though we are thousands of miles away, but there's going to be a way. And also a sense of connection for you. You tune in and you are so attuned to what's happening. And of course, we have different, uh, 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 languages in South Africa, all 11 languages, all different like tribes. But the arts brings everyone to one space. And the identity, finding that identity, who am I in South Africa? Who is a South African? Am I South African or am I an African in Southern Africa? So once we take that, peel that layer out, then we find a sense of unification, because South Africa has been impacted with the whole um, xenophobia attacks, where a lot of people, they have lost their lives, where South Africans feel that other people coming from outside, they're taking their jobs, their wealth and all that. But we think of it, South Africans, we had South Africans go to exile during the apartheid era, going to Mozambique, to Namibia, Zambia, Zimbabwe, USA. And those countries, they welcome those individuals. Yes, I understand there is people who come from outside, they come and commit crime. Like here in America, you have people who come to America and they come and commit crime, and then it paints a bad picture for those people who are doing the right things. So those are some of the factors or things that you will find within the country itself. And the racism part of it, it will never go away, unfortunately. And we used to talk about the Rainbow Nation when Mandela came out. The Rainbow Nation is like all races, they are together. Yes, it happened for the novelty, it kind of like went away, as the years went by. And then I feel like it was also more evident after Nelson Mandela passed away. It was like, it took all of that with him. Yes, there's certain pockets of individuals who are still practicing that, who are still, who still believe that we can all live together. But there is a whole thing now of reverse racism, where the white community feel like, now we're being treated unfairly because of one, two, three, and four. But like history will tell, you know, the black community, the black people will never, give you that kind of treatment because like, oh, it's racism. But having said that, within the black community, you find black on black racism. You know what I'm saying? So there is all these facets that you need to connect and understand exactly what is happening. And that's what makes life interesting, even though it also creates a disadvantage for many, where they have to lose their life. They lose the liberties of enjoying life, and I think of, we spoke about like there's so many tribes of within the Indian, cult, tribes. And those tribes, though, I don't know, you might speak on that. There is a sense of community, there is a sense of connection. There might be differences here and there, but when they are together, they recognize who they are as people, not only as skin color, as the language that they speak. So those 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 things are what you will find in South Africa. Is the country capable enough to generate wealth to sustain the individuals who are in South Africa? Absolutely. South Africa has so many resources, but those resources are being taken away by people who come from outside. And then people buy jewelry, buying all this gold and whatever, gold jewelry rings. And that's coming from, some of it is coming from South Africa. And then the people who are working in South Africa in these mines, getting trapped in the mines, they're not getting paid the money that they are worth. And then you can name any of these resources, but now it comes then to a point of, again, the political arena. How are these people looking at the people within the communities? How can we help them to self-sustain themselves? teach them how to, and then so they can be able to pass on that legacy to their generations. But with all that said, what's beautiful about South Africa, each and every tribe has got its own identity when it comes to the arts, the music, the 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 the, the dress code, the costumes. Each culture has got its own. That's what creates that like beautiful glow of what South Africa is. Whether you are Zulu or Swati, Ndebele, Xhosa, Tswana, Sotho, Venda, Shangani, Afrikaner, white, you blend in that pot, and that's that's what what makes South Africa beautiful. And then of course you go to Cape Town. Cape Town is a country in a country, if that makes sense to you, because you go to Cape Town, you're like, am I still in South Africa? But in certain parts of Cape Town, like they work on time. I remember one time I was in South Africa, Jennifer, and I flew in, and then the gentleman said, "Oh, you're going to the airport to go." I was going to pick up a car, a rental car. He was like, "Well, you have to be here. The train gets here like quarter past, but it gets here like a 12 past, and it leaves at like quarter past." And that was the fact. So they are so time conscious. Everything is so organized. But there is also a lot of racism. If I call and say I want to buy a house in Cape Town, I'll not get that house. But if you call and then they recognize the accent and or your name and like, oh, you white? Oh, okay, cool. Or even if for you, they will consider you as white. You get that house in a heartbeat. And they don't know. I might have more money more than you. But then the whole thing of that, there is still that whole thing of how you know profiling, distant profiling and all of that. But to answer your question, what is there? There is so many things that still need to be worked on in South Africa, but the arts always prevails and the arts always shows. You have different companies that are now traveling to go to a different parts of the world to perform, and they bring in the arts from South Africa, and people are like, wow, this is South Africa. And people go and visit South Africa because they saw a show, they saw a dance piece, they saw a production that was like emphasizing the beauty of South Africa. So I do believe that your travel, you will find a plate full of you know uh, knowledge and information that you will bring back. That when you come back, you will actually mirror what you're seeing, what you see here, and what you saw there. Again, the cries of women, especially women who feel they are not protected by the, those that they think love them, the law enforcement, bless you. And so it's very disheartening. I have a very good friend of mine. She's an advocate for women, because I actually had it on my show. Um, Label is her name. She went through the same like rape and abuse, and she speaks so very highly. And she is now the advocate. She goes all out. She has created this organization, a community of women who actually go out and seek more support to apprehend these men who do these lawless killings. So I'm actually myself looking forward to I mean see how I can be part of that community that travels with you guys, to go and explore South Africa with a different community. It'll be beautiful.
Yeah, I'd love if you join us in November.
Absolutely.
Come on over.
We will talk. We will talk, Miss
Yes.
Jennifer. We'll see what that looks like. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So thank you for sharing all of that. Yeah, there's so many different layers as you were talking. Um, with the femicide, I'm going to be speaking later today with a news channel that's covering the missing murdered Indigenous women story, because recently there was a white woman missing or something in one of our states, and
right.
she's getting like all sorts of attention, and the rallying around trying to find her. And the
Right.
question is, why is that getting attention when our people have been missing and murdered and not getting the same attention. And so I've been thinking a lot about that, of how Black and brown bodies are viewed here in the United States. And it really just comes down to like the white supremacy culture of colonization, that we can come in, take resources, rape the earth,
Mm,
and think of Black and brown people as not human.
mm,
And therefore our bodies and our resources can be taken and um, just disregarded in a certain sense. Um, the first day of the conference is I'm one of the featured keynote speakers. It's an artisan conference. It's for artists for social transformation, and there'll be speakers from around the world. But the first day, I'll be giving my speech at Constitution Hill.
okay.
And so I've been trying to read up on that. I know it's like a former prison, and now it's the courthouses. So I guess I would also ask you, like, what is Constitution Hill to you or South Africans, and what kind of message do you think is appropriate? One last thing I was also thinking about is this idea of reparations, or like land back, and how you were talking about, in South Africa, sometimes this reverse racism where now the white people are like, oh, well, you're getting affirmative action or whatever it is over in South Africa. Now we're at the bottom of the ladder. So how can you truly have like reparations and stuff? So I guess, in considering those questions, like, what is Constitution Hill? And if I'm given a keynote from Turtle Island, like,
Right.
how does that land with you?
No, that's a very a good question, Miss Jennifer, because how do you give back? How do you give back? And what does giving back look like? And at the same time, what does healing look like for those that have been hurt? And even if you're giving back, are you giving back from a point of let's do away with it so they can like at least say we did get this reparation? Um, or are you giving back because there is something that is really driving you positively to like I'm I'm willing to do this because I know that I hurt you or my community did hurt you. So those are so many conversations around that. Yes, the Constitution Hill is a very significant, building, because it is a journey to democracy, that building alone. It's like going to Robben Island, it is a lot of things surface if you connect yourself to what is around you, not just going just to see like, oh wow, so this is where Mandela was for 27 years. Oh wow, so how did he come out? Of course, those questions are going to come up, but if you dig deeper, like what was the essence of the 27 years? And then what happens after the 27 years? It's the same thing with the Constitution Hill, you know, and the voice, of course, always when you're in the Constitution Hill, it always echoes a sense of remembering what happened, you know. There's a documentary that I'm doing with two friends of mine, one from New Zealand, one from Germany, and we're following this one good brother. He's an artist. I'll send you the information. He did a clip of the performance at the Constitution Hill, and how he did it here. Like this one other guy, he's singing, and you see the pain that goes through. You see the feeling, the echo of the building when the other brother is singing. It resonates a lot of pain. So there is a lot of things, of course, that goes on. I mean, for me, it will mean something else. For somebody else, when you get there yourself, having read what you are reading about the Constitution Hill, and also to connect with people who are also going to give you an abundance of information about what Constitution Hill means to them. Now you have all these, you know, feelings and emotions from different people as you are also putting out your speech. It's going to give you a different meaning, or and you want connecting with the natives of South Africa. So yes, so the and again, you can give me land, but what's giving me land without the resources gonna do me? Look at what happened in Zimbabwe. Robert Mugabe said all the white people move. Okay, whatever the case is. But after they left, did you give all those people money to say, okay, you can buy all these resources, materials so that you can plow your own land? No. You have people with acres and acres of land, but they can't do nothing to that land because they don't have the monetary, uh, uh, material to, like, rather to buy resources, to buy the right equipment. So again, it goes back to the whole thing of what are we doing, and I mean, my work that I do as a restorative justice specialist, and I'm always looking at as an individual, what am I doing? What am I giving to the universe? Because the universe is always giving us, and but I'm looking forward to that journey to even not only with the artisan, conference, but work with you as well from other realms, in the arts. I'll really be connecting with you, Miss Jennifer, and to continue that power of healing, within our communities. And there is a lot of pain, but there is possibilities. There is platforms, and those platforms, they don't have to be so huge. It's those small communities that bring change. And like I said, your energy transcends so much, soul and beauty and healing. Uh, we need many people who can feel that. Of course, there's not going to be a lot of people like yourself, like myself, but there's going to be a lot of people who are going to feel the energy, and pass it on to the next, and with that said, I mean, I really appreciate you coming to the podcast, Miss Jennifer, and sharing and opening up your world to us and to know who you are and your journey and where you're going. And hopefully we'll see the light, in the tunnel, not at the end, in the tunnel, and make a difference in the world.
Yes, thank you so much. And I enjoyed getting to know you a little bit more and love to continue learning more about your work and how we can collaborate. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. No, thank you. And once again, to those who are listening and those who will be listening to this podcast, this was another beautiful day, talking about the courage to fly, and talking to Miss Jennifer. And thank you very much for coming through, and we'll definitely connect with you and keep in touch.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Miss Jennifer.
Bye.